Yo guys, and welcome to another ZBrush speed sculpt video. And for today we are making my new favourite model, a commission for DragonQueen. This character ended up being named Lyra and her species Umbra Aliena. And this is a sort of Xenomorph dragon kind of design. And like I said, this is probably it is currently my favourite full body sculpture to date. I'm really happy with how this one came out. So, the most critical thing about this model from very earlier on is that I really tried to do things differently. I've been feeling like a lot of my models lately have been kind of getting a little bit samey, a bit generic, or just, I don't know, not to put down my own work, but they've just not really been feeling that exciting in my opinion. I feel like that, again, it's just very samey. And for this one, I really tried my hardest just to do things very differently. I tried to put a lot more focus into certain areas I tend to ignore. This is areas like the neck, the underbelly, the limbs, the feet. You know how all the features and all the really cool looking details that you find on any artwork, in fact, is normally in the face, the head, maybe the hair or spikes, maybe the wings if you've got those kind of features. Typically all the details in the same couple of places, and that's where your eyes are drawn to. I am the same in that regard, and therefore I have been neglecting other features. Feet more than anything else. I'm just really bad at drawing feet. So like I said, I really tried my hardest to just be a lot more, I want to say passionate. I am passionate anyway. I absolutely love these designs, and I especially love doing commissions as they really make me do things I would never normally do. It really challenges me to kind of think of designs in 3D that I wouldn't normally do, all sorts of new features, expressions, postures, anatomy, all sorts of things. I really enjoy it. But like I said, I really tried to just take it to the next level of this one. And a lot of that had to do with various features, various ridges and scales. I felt like that when it comes to a lot of these features, I tend to just kind of ignore them. I tend to stick to the old, the old happy medium of just having a row of scales going down the back. Or, a row of spikes going down the back, maybe like 2 horns, maybe a couple of horns on a jaw, and that's kind of like about it when it comes to my dragons. Maybe a claw on the wings, and that's really quite it. They're very samey. So like I said, for this one, as well as it being DragonQueen's design, I obviously had to take on a lot of her suggestions, her design, and make it as this was hers. But also, she gave me a lot of freedom, and I was also able to try and play with certain features that she had, and try to adapt them in ways that I wouldn't normally do. It's kind of hard to put it in words, but the TLDR there is I just tried to do things differently. And like I said, I am so happy with the overall outcome of this. I feel like the body is a lot more interesting. There's something about the posture, perhaps it's the long thin legs or the skinnier body. That was one of her main designs in this, is the fact that it was meant to be very skinny, like a xenomorph. And I feel like that really came out very interestingly here. In particular with that design, she wanted it to be skinny like a xenomorph, like kind of alien-ish, but to have the general body posture and shape as I think it was a sandwing, a Wings of Fire species, which I really tried to adopt into this. And like I said again, combined with the skinniness of a xenomorph, it really did introduce some very interesting constraints, some very interesting kind of like styles and things I have to go with here. As we can see currently right now as well, I had to do like all the vertebrae down the neck and tail individually. On top of the whole skinny part, she did want there to be like some, not vertebrae protrusions per se, but just, I guess a bit of protrusions actually. Just like some very subtle protrusions going down the entirety of the spine. That is another feature that I typically don't really bother with, and it's something I'm trying to fix, trying to be a lot more creative here. And like I said, I really like how it came out. And of course adding the various spikes that protrude out of the protrusions. And one of her designs, one of her ideas was the twin line of spikes coming down the head and neck, which again was just a little bit more unique thing that I really felt like made the whole thing pop out more. In addition to that, I spent a lot of time on the neck, on the torso, the belly, just generally all the underbelly parts that again I tend to normally neglect. Try to put a lot more effort here, and not just a case of just add like a bit of musculature or maybe like some baggy neck or whatever. I tried to add in a lot more creases, a lot more muscle fibers around the chest. I wanted to make the ribs kind of pop out a little bit more, because again it is meant to be skinny anyway, but just to like really emphasize certain details, emphasize features that are there that I typically kind of just like hide under the mesh of the skin. I really like how the neck came out in particular. I think the neck has just got so many different physical textures going on with it, and it's really interesting just to look at, and I really like that. Another thing actually is the toes, the feet. So like I mentioned earlier, feet is one of those things I neglect. I can't help it, I'm not very good at drawing them, and I do tend to get just a little bit lazy. Another thing I'm trying to fix with. And the way I did the feet this time round is a bit of a technique I've not really been able to find like any consistent working technique when it comes to making dragon feet in general, or just feet overall in my models. I do tend to flip-flop between different techniques, but with the one I used here, I thought was far more successful. And that was quite simply making one singular toe, get the shape of that one toe, get the shape nice and early, have it the way I want, and then when I have that one toe the way I like it, then I'll duplicate it. Whereas what I normally do is I create, you know, like each individual sausage of the foot or the hand, and then detail it afterwards. Now, there's a perk and a con to that. The perk being that when you detail them individually, they look independent, they look different, and that is more realistic. But then it also, in my case anyway, tends to make me burn out a little bit on them, and I don't really want to do them. It can also make it quite tricky to define certain details, because if they're already connected, the meshes are kind of webbing to each other, and it's just like kind of a little bit harder to control the individual ones. Whereas here, like I said, I made the one toe the way I wanted, and then I duplicated them, and everything was already in place, and I could just add more detail on top of them, such as the trademark kind of fold of skin that you see on a lot of theropod paleo art, where it just has that fold of skin kind of around what I imagine is the knuckles of the feet. I'm not really sure the technical terms here. Little things like that I added in afterwards without worrying about it kind of warping all over the place. As I said earlier, it's kind of tricky to describe in words. It was a lot of improvising, a lot of me just diving in, just seeing how things worked, and of course at every step of the way making sure that DragonQueen herself was happy with the results. It was her commission, her character. I had to make sure that everything was the way she liked it. Fortunately it was. And like I said, I was very fortunate. She gave me the freedom to really do what I wanted and really push my limits here. The amount of detail and the amount of wording I just went through for the feet alone, I know that's a lot to describe the process of the feet, but now imagine all of that effort applied to a lot of other features around this creation. I did, like I said, I really tried to make every different thing just a bit more unique than what I normally would. Just put a bit more time and effort into more than just the face and the wings. Speaking of wings, they were as tricky as always. Oh, I swear. Dragon wings will never be easy for me to do. They are a very time-consuming thing. But fortunately, I am getting better. I am getting faster at doing them. In the case of this one, which since, you know, this has already happened since in the model, but if you looked earlier on when it came to the membrane of the wings, normally what I do is I use like a big sphere subtool, and I just mold it and stretch it and warp it to fit over the entire wings. And as we've seen in previous videos, that is a very painful process. This time around, I actually just got a couple of cube subtools, flattened them, stretched them horizontally or vertically, and then kind of patched up the wings like that. And once I had like an entire membrane between two fingers of the wings, or once I had the entire membrane over the entirety of the wing, then I finally dynameshed it all together. And what was really handy about that was that it just allowed me to control the flow, the curvature, the way the membrane stretched between individual fingers of the wings. It just all came out a lot more fluid. Like I said, once again, there's a lot of description for these certain techniques, but it's a lot more time applied than what I'd normally do. Now currently, what we're seeing right now is that I've been adding in a couple of extra fingers to the hands and feet, and this was actually a request from Queen. So originally, I gave the dragon 3-toed fingers and hands, as I thought was the initial design. I can't remember where I thought that from. It was either from her initial sketch or from the Sandwing, one of the two. And later on, after a while, she asked for the additional sets of fingers, which I have to agree really made it pop out a lot more. I think this model looks a lot better with 5 digits than 3. But the tricky part was that and the tail, asymmetrical tail, these features were added in after I'd done all the scaling, all the detail, all the more high poly things. So that was kind of badly timed. I made it work in the end, I made it work, but that was a bit tricky because like I said, I'd already done all the high poly detail. What I would normally do is that when adding the extra digits, when adding the curved wing, curved tail, I'd normally then dynamesh it into the rest of the mesh, merge it all together, and then apply the detailing again over on top. That way I can guarantee its consistency. The reason why I did not do that for this, and why I simply just patched it up and tried to make it work, is because it is a commission. I charge by the hour, and I'm very, very conscious about how long my process may take. I try to be efficient with what I do, and redetailing the entirety of the body, the model, just to fit in the extra additions, that wouldn't be very efficient. Now, there is a bit of a debate really, like, could it be laziness? Could it be that I just didn't want to do it? I don't know. Like I said, I was very concerned about the time taken, because this model, for as great as the experimenting was, and as beautiful as the finish is, this model took significantly longer than my usual averages. And like I said, I was getting very, very concerned on time taken. I'd say my general average time when I make a full body dragon can vary from about 3 to 7 hours. In the end, this model stretched upwards of, I think it was about 10 or 11 hours. Like I said, charged by the hour. That's a bit of a big deal, and I did not want to do that to Queen. So, like I said earlier, I had to try to patch things together, really just tried to be very careful with the detailing, tried to make it consistent, and tried to make the new appendages fit with the rest of the model. And I think they did in the end, I really think they did. That did make texturing them just a little bit trickier. If I wanted to add certain gradients in, or certain different hues and shades, it did make it a bit trickier, meant I had to very carefully redo it in some areas. But that was fine though. In the end, what it meant was I was able to keep the initial high poly detailing I added to the rest of the body without sacrificing it, without redoing it entirely, and potentially taking a lot more time. It also did, to be fair, give me the opportunity to learn how to kind of stitch things together without dynameshing and merging. So that was actually quite useful, and that is something I definitely could do in the future, especially for models that I may want to rig and animate, such as a disconnected jaw. I think that could actually be really useful if I can learn how to stitch things as opposed to merge things. Again, more technical talk, but a lot that I've learned from the process. Now when it comes to the colour scheme, that's my favourite part of any model, is the texturing. So, we went back and forth when it came to the coloration, and there was quite a fair bit of trial and error. Overall, I know that she wanted a bit of a dark blue design, so to go with her original sketch that she did, it was a blue dragon with a white underbelly, and some very kind of veiny ornamented wings, and the webbing or a sail on her head. There's a lot of detail in that, and a lot of kind of veiny parts here and there. But she wanted to be like a Xenomorph, very dark and very alien-like, so I tried to make it like a very, very dark, dirty blue. Very dark, very grey, a lot of blacks, greys and browns thrown throughout. The white underbelly I darkened as well to make it a bit more of a beige. Again, just a bit dusky, a bit more alien-like. And overall, I really, really like how it came out. I think that for a more alienish type of dragon, I feel like that the darker colours just kind of make it look a little bit creepier. But I did try adding in a lot of lighter colours, sort of lighter markings, stripes and such, to get that more dragon feel back in. I don't know about you guys, but when I think about aliens and dragons to myself, I feel like a alien would be very dark and murky, whereas a dragon would be very brightly coloured or very bold with strong colours, and I tried to get a bit of a hybridised effect with the textures into this. And of course, as per Queen's request, the piercing amber eyes, which I really, really like. So that is this model overall. Like I said, I really, really like it. I do believe this is probably the best full body model I've done so far. And this is all the product of a lot of experimenting, a lot of trying new things. As always guys, especially if you do digital art, you can always save backups, always try doing new things. If you don't like the new thing, you can always revert to a previous backup or a previous save file. It's my favourite thing about digital art, and I really do try to abuse it, and it comes out with beautiful results like this one. It may not be the best dragon xenomorph in the world, but in terms of my personal skill, I think it's a lot better than everything else I've done so far. At least in terms of the full bodies. And like I said, I'm just really satisfied, and I really hope that this can be the standard that my future models will grow from now on. But yes, that is that model done. As always, guys, thank you very much for watching. And like I said to DarkEdgeTV, 1, thank you for commissioning me to create your character. And 2, thank you for giving me the freedom that you did to allow me to really expand this and make it as awesome as I possibly could. So to all of you, thank you. And as always, have a wonderful day. Cheers.